Welcome to Beyond the Backyard, the propane podcast where we explore the energy that fuels more than you think. From backyard grills to transportation, residential, commercial, and agricultural applications, we're diving into how propane powers everyday life. Whether you're a seasoned pro in the propane industry or curious about clean, safe, and reliable energy, this is your place for powerful insights and fresh perspectives. Each episode, we bring you the people, the technology, and the stories moving propane forward. You'll hear from industry leaders, problem solvers, and propane pros with fresh ideas that go far beyond the tank. Beyond the Backyard is powered by MOPERC, the Missouri Propane Education and Research Council. Now let's get started and go beyond the backyard with propane. Hi, Derek. Thanks for agreeing to be on Beyond the Backyard, the propane podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just dive right into it. Why don't you start off by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm born and raised in Missouri, lifelong Missourian. I've lived in the Southwest Missouri area my whole life. Went to school in a small rural community and then college in Springfield, and came out of college thinking I was going to be in a career in the golf industry. Did that for about 10 years. And then my wife informed me I needed to get a real job, and just happened to run into an individual that I had known in high school that was involved in the propane industry and asked me if I would like a job. That was 18 years ago. And I started as a service tech with their company. And then within a year, moved into the management role as a district manager. And then just basically moved around with that company within the Southwest Missouri area, different titles as they changed their structures until I came to the commission. And that was 3 years ago, this last July, that I came on as the director of the commission.
Okay, so you've been in your current role with the Missouri Propane Safety Commission since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
At your previous employers, you created the Area 28 Safety Committee?
Yes, well, the retail employer I was with at the time, we had a safety plan through our safety department that required the managers to always be engaged with the next level supervisor on what your safety metrics were every month. And through some discussions with my supervisor at the time, I felt like we were missing a little bit of the connection, because it all came down to what we as managers relayed to the guys in the field as to what they were doing. And it was just basically sometimes they felt like they were being talked to. So came up with the idea of creating a safety committee where we took one or two of the key, what we would call at that time, field employees, and they joined the manager as part of this committee. So then we talked about the safety metrics, we talked about things we could change, and we got the view from the field employee as to what they needed to be safe, why it was important to be safe, and they became part of the process. And we did that within our area. My supervisor fully supported it. We did it till the time I left that retailer, and we saw a reduction in our incidents and injuries. So having that field input and then having the credibility of that field employee to their coworkers, it wasn't just coming from management down. It was that there truly was a reason we were doing this. We were setting safety protocols, and it was about the safety of the individuals and our customers. It really was an eye-opening process to me to kind of take and put in my tool belt of anytime I'm doing anything new or going into a new role, finding that information and being able to get the other, whether they're subordinate employees or coworkers, everyone involved. So you see it from all aspects.
Okay, so how did your experience working in the propane operations management lead you to where you are today?
Well, being involved with operations, especially in the company I was working for, they pushed for you to be involved in organizations outside of the company. They were very supportive of that. So I started by getting involved with the MPGA and MOPERC. And through those roles and being involved with those organizations, became more aware of the commission of something more than just the people that were coming and inspecting our facilities. And then was lucky enough to be appointed by the governor as a commissioner to the commission. And then it was a direct tie of what I was doing every day in my role with the retailer was about running the business and being safe. Now I was also working within the organization that was establishing how the regulation compliance was to be done within the state, and it really tied the two together. So getting involved from an industry standpoint, not just with my individual company, it just showed me how to tie the skill set that I was using every day into the bigger picture.
Yeah, so lots of connections made between those two. You said you were involved with the Missouri Propane Gas Association and you served as a president for what was a 2-year term?
Set to be a 2-year term. My term actually worked out to be almost 3 years. I finished out a term for a president that had left the industry. And then there were some delays due to COVID, et cetera, that we didn't have some meetings and some elections. So for a while, I stretched into the longest termed president because of that. But I think now the current president, I think he's going to get past me on that. But he'll let me know as soon as he does, I'm sure.
I'm sure he'll let you know. So tell us more about the Missouri Propane Safety Commission. Who does it serve and what kind of resources are provided through them?
Well, the Safety Commission was established as basically the regulatory agency for propane industry in the state of Missouri when the Department of Agriculture, who had previously been what we call the authority having jurisdiction, or the AHJ, they were looking at that not being part of their scope. And there was a group within the industry that pushed to create a authority that was there to regulate propane that was based on propane, so that we had propane people
Mm-hmm.
running the regulation and enforcement of regulations for the propane industry. And that was established. From that point, basically, there has been the initial kind of motive and direction was just to promote safety for the use of propane across the state, no matter what type of installation, no matter whether it's a company or a customer, just overall propane safety. And most of the time, that's done just through making sure that there's compliance with national standards. We have now evolved a little bit, and we're not getting away from, but we're expanding from just simply being a regulatory enforcement body to trying to provide some resource, education, those type of things where we don't want our inspectors to show up and it just be that we're checking boxes of whether you are in compliance with regulation or not. We want to be a trusted source. So if someone has a question, that we can work through that with them before it becomes an issue to make sure that it's done right. So the overall outreach is just still the same thing to make sure the use of propane in the state of Missouri is safe for everyone. That is our ultimate goal.
Right. So what would you say would be on the horizon? What's the future look like for the Safety Commission?
My hope is that we continue to expand into more and more sectors of propane use to where we're looking at different situations, because typically that's how we're going to most affect the safety overall, is to make sure that we catch things before they become an issue. We also are really wanting to step forward more with the outreach, what educational opportunities we can provide, even maybe as simple as a town hall in a given area where we could set up and have propane marketers or the general public come in and ask questions of our inspectors about what needs to be done to be in compliance, what it means to make sure everything has a proper safety check. And ultimately, anything we can do to limit the number of people that are adversely affected because of a propane incident or injured, or obviously we don't want any fatalities. Everything we can do to reduce those numbers will, at least while I'm a director, is on the table to look at moving forward. But it mainly comes down to making sure we are well educated and that we are a good resource for the industry to provide the knowledge or assist in any way possible.
Yes. What safety solutions have been implemented since you joined the Safety Commission?
Well, we've done a number of things. One of the first things that we looked at, we needed to improve our data collection. We also worked on making sure that we were looking at every sector that had the most effect on the day-to-day safety of the general public. So one thing we have is we've established some new protocols for what we consider the installer sector, your HVAC, your plumbers, just to make sure that they are registered, properly trained, things that has always been done over the years for them of the affiliated industries. We also have implemented evaluation rubric of the trainers that provide the training throughout the state, standardized before. It's always something the commission has done, but we standardize that. And then probably one of the biggest things that's helped us move forward is we made sure that there wasn't any conflicts between what our procedural processes were and what the regulatory require.
Okay. What accomplishments are you most proud of since joining the Safety Commission?
Probably the two that come to mind first are in the 3 years that I've been here, we have seen every year a reduced rate of what we call violations. So we have wrote fewer violations. We found less things wrong as we've went to locations, which very proud of my inspectors and the industry as a whole that we're making progress in that way. It'd be great for me if we showed up at every inspection and there was never anything for us to find to write as a violation. So we're moving in the right direction. We had a lag, seemed like when I came on, of how fast some of those got corrected. We've since implemented a procedure for how we handle those locations with follow up inspections. We have to get to the point of shutting the location down. We have a procedure as how that happens. And we have seen a reduction in the amount of locations that end up in that overdue status. So those two things have been very encouraging, and I'm very proud of not only the organization, but the industry as a whole that we've seen those numbers improve.
So let's talk a little bit about just propane itself. So, with me being so new to the industry and not having a background in propane, I'm learning things every day, and it just continues to amaze me all the benefits of propane. So, from your perspective, what are the biggest benefits of utilizing propane?
For me, the biggest benefits are one, its reliability and its portability would be number two. There's not a fuel out there that you can count on in emergency situations or disasters to get energy where you need it when you need it. There's no other source that can do what propane can do. And when handled correctly and follow the right safety protocols, to me, it's safer than anything out there. You know, we hear a lot in the world about electric this, electric that. There are inherent risks to that that are always going to be there, regardless of what your safety protocols are. You can eliminate a lot of the issues with propane if you just do simple things with safety, and it can be very safe, very practical, and as I said, used anywhere, especially in those worst. You can get propane there, and you can provide heat. You can provide clean, warm water. You can provide electricity by running generators. It can do it all.
Right. So when I started in this industry, I didn't realize that propane had so many uses other than grilling. So yeah, the reliability and portability are very big aspects because if the electric grid goes out, you can use propane to power your whole house. So yeah, that's something I didn't realize, and it surprised me, but it makes sense.
Yeah, propane has always been one of those things I think throughout, and I've noticed in my time that it does a job and people don't realize the jobs it's doing. They just, there's a tank in the backyard and they don't realize everything that can be done. And it's kind of the silent provider.
Hmm.
So we in the industry have to do a better job of making sure that the public understands that.
Yeah, I agree. What applications can propane be utilized in?
Well, pretty much in my mind, you name it, you can use propane in it. Generally, we see it used obviously in your home heating. You see it for cooking, but you can use it for cooling. You can use it for refrigeration. It can be used for sterilization. There are a number of manufacturing processes that use it for extraction of different derivatives. Agricultural use it for sterilization of turkey barns or chicken barns, not just for heat.
That's something I didn't know. I didn't know it could be used for sterilization. That's interesting.
Yep, you will see some facilities basically they have a apparatus that they put on behind a tractor or some of them are automated that it is a series of burners that then once a group of birds goes out of a barn, they can run those burners across it and it provides enough heat that it kills everything and sterilizes the area. So there are some agricultural applications that do that.
Hmm, cool. Yeah, I did not know that.
Something else to look up.
Right. So, what else can it be used in? Transportation?
Transportation, and that transportation can go from your school bus to port trucks to your over the road, just normal passenger car. And there's even applications where you can run boat motors and trolling motors and lawn mowers, weed eaters. There are applications that you can use it to run about any engine out there you can use propane on.
Wow, a very wide variety that we have.
Right.
How important is continuous improvement to this industry?
Well, I think when you talk about continuous improvement, you've got to look at it from the right direction. Continuous improvement, it's not about chasing the next big thing, not trying to necessarily have the next big idea. It has to be about constantly asking yourself, can what we're doing work better? If you take that mindset, that'll help you get more practical and even more impactful changes, let you rethink what you're doing and find a better way. Just because something is working doesn't mean that it's the best thing we can do. And I think if you normalize that thought process of improvement, whether it's in your organization or the industry as a whole, then we create more of a culture where progress isn't just something that happens or isn't optional, it's the expectation. And that we're always looking to do better things. So you're going to get better ideas from that. And then improvements are going to naturally just emerge.
So, how do you balance the innovation in a compliance driven industry like propane?
Well, again, it's not about looking to do things differently. From a regulatory standpoint, regulation is always going to be there, but regulation sometimes does fall behind the progress of technological advancement. So, a way to kind of be innovative in a compliance driven sector of the industry is to make sure that we're aware of what those technological advances are and rethinking what we do on a daily basis, really, on can we make the process better for what we see coming to the industry. It's not about trying to limit the industry on what they can do based off regulation. It's trying to find the way to marry those regulations to provide a safe usage for what the industry has developed as new technology or new uses. So it's having constant communication, it's asking the questions and getting input from everyone, and then not compromising the safety, but finding out how you can improve not only the safety, but the process to get there as the technology advances.
So, what's something our listeners may not know about propane?
Unless they're involved in certain sports, they probably don't realize that almost every hockey stadium you go to is using propane for the Zamboni.
The Zambonis.
that was one of the things that I didn't realize and was
Mhm.
probably one of the more eye-opening things. That and just I don't think that the general public understands what all option there is. I would venture to say you could go and ask someone if they were interested in a propane-powered weed eater, and they would look at you like, "You're crazy." There is the technology for that out there. There are some that are in use. So, I think anything that's just kinda outside our norm of the day to day. You mentioned the barbecue. A few years back with the association, we were at the state fair manning a booth, and then a couple months later at a FFA convention. And probably 90% of the people, especially at the FFA convention that came by, they knew that they used it on the farm. They knew about barbecue grill cylinders, but they didn't realize that you could have a job in this industry and that there was more to it than just the white tank or the white bottle, that there's so much that can be done. And, as I'm sure you're seeing, as you start to scratch the surface of what's there, it just continues to grow and evolve. And there's just more and more that this wonderful fuel energy source does that we don't even realize it could do, or in most cases, don't even realize that it's already doing for us.
Right. In my mind, coming into this industry, I knew that propane was a thing because I seen the bottles, the cylinders hooked up to my dad's grill, or like my grandpa had a tank in his backyard. So it was something that was always there, and that's just how it was. It wasn't something that I thought about there being a whole industry behind. But once you start diving into it, it's like endless options for propane uses, and learning so much about it is just kind of blowing my mind for the clean energy that it is and how useful that it can be.
And when it comes to a career in the industry, I'll say, you're starting and getting to know propane, having been in it 18 years. It's surprising. You would think, oh, you've got 18 years in an industry, you've seen it, you know what it does, you've seen it all. There's something new all the time. That's an exciting part. That makes any part of the industry, in my mind, just fun. People would think that regulation and code compliance isn't really exciting, and they would probably be right. But in this industry, because it's always evolving and there's so many applications, it is actually interesting to even look at it from the regulatory side as those two work together to reach so many needs of this the general public.
Right. What's your favorite thing about propane?
Favorite thing besides that it gives me a career that I enjoy is just that, what we've already talked about of how when things are at their worst, think back to North Carolina here last year with the major flooding and the disaster that that was. Many years ago, Joplin, when they had the major tornado. When those things were at their worst, propane as a industry and the people that work in it were some of the first people to step up and lend a hand because they had at their disposal this great energy source that could be used to positively affect these situations and provide the basic necessities that the individuals that were affected so badly by that needed. It makes me happy with this industry and excites me every day is to know that we're not going to stop natural disasters or emergencies from happening, but we are an industry and propane is a source that can be there when that happens and can be a positive in the rebuilding, getting back to normal, the rescue efforts, the long term rebuilding efforts. Propane can be there for all of it. And people that work in this industry, they are willing at the moment's notice to do that because they know what propane can do and they know how vital it's going to be to those people that are really in a bad spot after those types of situations.
It's there when you need it to help get back on track.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I guess this industry was not one that I planned to ever be in, but it's one that I don't ever see myself leaving now. There's always been kind of the thought process of once you get into propane, it gets in your blood and you don't get out. And I thought that was kind of just cliche when I started, but I see that now because it's such a great industry already and there's such a potential for it to continue to be so much more. Simply prioritizing safety, training, working with continuous improvement, making sure that propane's not just there, that it's noticed by individuals for the right reasons. Anything that becomes just kind of second nature and you don't worry about it. I mean, we all go out and we jump in our vehicle and we turn the key and we expect it to start and just go. We don't think about it. Well, propane's so reliable, it kind of does that in whatever industry it's in. It just becomes the reliable, it's always there. It doesn't get the notoriety. Nobody knows.
I agree with that. Yeah.
As an industry, if we prioritize safety and keep the negatives out of the news and do a better job of making sure we get the positives out there and we really show what propane can do, this industry will be around forever and has the potential to greatly improve the lives of many of Missourians, Americans, just the world as a whole, if we just, as industry professionals, make sure we get the message out there.
I agree. Well, thank you for being a guest on Beyond the Backyard, Derek. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it immensely and look forward to maybe being able to join again sometime.
Yay, I hope so. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Backyard, the Propane Podcast. This episode is complete. For show notes and additional information on the benefits and uses of propane, visit propanemissouri.com. You'll also find interesting case studies and valuable propane safety information. Have a great day and remember to listen to our next episode of Beyond the Backyard to hear about the people, the technology, and the stories moving propane forward.